Hi there, and welcome to our educational video. Today, our topic will be on Project Procurement Management. Imagine you are assigned to build a house for a client as a project, and you need certain material and tools that you don't have to complete it. This example of work of finding goods and services, buying and selling, is an example of project procurement. As outlined in PMBOK, project procurement is the processes necessary to acquire products, services, and results needed from outside the project team. Now, finding the right quality and sufficient quantity of goods, supplies, and services is an important part of project procurement management. It is needed to keep the project development process in motion. It is also important for the project manager to establish and maintain proper relationships with vendors to ensure that the project runs smoothly. It is also an integral part of making sure that the project is successful. Now, how does this work? Project procurement is involved in three processes: planning process, conduct process, and finally the control process. Project procurement management begins with identifying what you need to do to make a contract, as well as how to plan and manage the procurement process. Next, the contract or agreement will be forwarded to potential sellers. Keep in mind, as a project manager, you are considered as a buyer, and a potential vendor or service provider is a seller. A buyer is a company or person who purchases the goods or services, while a seller is the one that provides the goods and services. Once contracts are set, a bidding process can begin and the best seller for your project is finalized. When the task required finally begins, it is important that the work performed by the seller is continuously monitored to ensure that the contract is followed through. Once completed, the contract is closed and the necessary documents are updated. Now that you have the full picture, let's dig deeper into each process.
The first step of procurement is the planning process. This is where documenting, selecting, generating proposals, and defining the type of scope that needs to be completed by the seller is done. This process can be initiated at certain points of the project cycle. You must document decisions, specify your approach, and identify potential sellers. The process consists of various inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs. To begin, we would need to have our project management plan, like the scope management plan or resource management plan, and project documents like milestone list and requirements documentation. Now, this is the point where as project managers, we need to do some important data analysis. An example is make or buy analysis. In this example, when we look into making something, we have to consider our strategy, in-house expertise, and availability. And when we are considering buying something, we have to consider the cost, risk, and legal consideration. Once we have used our expert judgment, we can finally produce a procurement management plan with documents, source selection criteria, and procurement statement of work. A procurement statement of work is a document that describes the work and activities the seller must complete. It must be clear, complete, and concise as possible. The second process of project procurement is conducting. In this process, we obtain seller responses, select a seller, and award a contract. This can be performed throughout the project at various times. We will again use the project management plan and documents as an input, but this time we will also include our procurement documentation and procurement management plan. Now this is where a bidder's conference and negotiation skill can be used. A buyer can hold a bidder's conference to give all prospective sellers a chance to ask questions and clarify expectations. Negotiation is used to ensure a good and fair price is in place between the buyer and seller. Once a seller has been chosen, this is where an agreement or contract is created. An agreement is a formal document governing the relationship between the buyer and seller. Agreement is an important document in procurement management. The agreement must include these components: the work to be performed and how it will be performed, how disputes will be solved, schedule baseline, fees and retainer. It is mutually binding legal document that obligates the seller to provide a specific product, services or results, and obligates the buyer to compensate the seller. Remember, each organization formulates agreements differently. It also depends on the work or product expected from the seller.
The third process of project procurement is control procurements. This process requires project manager to manage procurement relationship, monitor contract performance, and make changes or correction if needed. This activity can be performed at any point in the project lifecycle or per need immediately. It helps to ensure that both parties involved is up to the project requirements as stated in the legal agreements. One example of control and procurement is a performance review. Project manager should analyze all available project data to verify that the sales are performed as they should. A second example is claims administration. It's a process of handling claims or disputes between the buyer and the seller, defining a change need to be made. All these techniques help ensure that the procurement process is fully managed. And finally, once contract is fulfilled between the two parties, procurement comes to its logical end. And with this, we come to an end of this project procurement management video as well. Remember, project procurement is the act of obtaining goods, supplies, and services required to complete a project. Therefore, project procurement management is a real key to ensure a proper planning, execution, and control process is in place to help the project overall succeed.
We present the overview of project procurement management and hope you have learned some valuable and interesting ideas with us. Project procurement involves many inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs that were discussed in the video, and that is used throughout the project lifecycle. The key inputs include the project charter, project management plan, and procurement management plan. The key tools and techniques include a make-or-buy analysis, bidder conferences, and claims administration. Finally, the key outputs include the procurement management plan, bid documents, procurement SOW, agreements, and closed procurements. It is important to note that there are many more factors involved in project procurement management, as you can see here. You just have to remember that each project is unique, and by carefully analyzing your approach, this will overall help your project succeed.